call Megadeth Super Collider a disappointment is kind of an understatement. There are still those that thought that it was a competent and some even believe a very good album, but it's one that certainly divided a lot of fans. But then you enter Dystopia, and Megadeth has entered into potentially a new age, considering they have now enlisted the help of Kiko from Angra and Chris from Lamb of God to their ranks. So they have a fresh lineup, but do they have a fresh sound? That's what we need to discover with this album review of Dystopia, the brand new disc here in 2016 by Megadeth, a member of the Big Four, one of the more important thrash bands, if not one of the most important of all time. So we've heard 3 singles off of this disc, the first 3 tracks, The Threat Is Real, Dystopia, and Fatal Illusion. 2 track reviews were done. And out of the 3, Dystopia is the one that has a little bit of freshness to it. It has some great riffage, but really that's something that exists throughout all 3 of these tracks. And they're powerful openers, considering they have that raw energy and raw power. There is youthfulness that is abound in Megadeth with some of the fresh feel on the instrumental side. And it's something that transitions and translates to a fairly well done instrumental album. Now, I have to be critical because that is, after all, the name of the game. If there's one aspect of this album that right out of the gate I have to be a bit concerned about, is the lyricism and the overall ability of Dave Mustaine to write just lyrics that have that same potency, that same punch, that same ability that we saw during Megadeth's golden age. And I don't feel that this album showcases that strength very well. And it's just because there is a lot of repetition on this. It's something where, lyrically speaking, it dies very quickly. We don't have much, and it's instead something where the aim and the execution feels like it has a bit of a cloud hanging over it that perhaps could be a layover from Super Collider. I'm not saying that these lyrics are bad by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, the lyrics themselves are good. It just doesn't seem like there's nearly enough. Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. I would have expected a lot more to come from the pulpit of Mustaine, but instead, it almost feels like, lyrically speaking, he pulls some punches. But that being said, the musical aspect of this disc happens to be and should be its strength, and actually it is. Whenever you take a look at some of these tracks and you hear what Kiko's able to bring to the mix, and you hear the thick drum, and just the way in which Chris is able to invigorate the percussive side of what Megadeth is aiming for with Dystopia, you can hear that ambition, you can hear that desire to really craft a strong Megadeth album almost from the onset. Now, Poisonous Shadows is a track that I need to speak about. It's track number 7 on this disc. It's the only song to crack 6 minutes in length, and it is an important point considering its length and what it could mean. Poisonous Shadows may very well be a direction that Megadeth wants to explore a little bit more in the future. I know a lot of us said with Super Collider, bring back the classic sound, bring back that thrash fest. And they have, for all intents and purposes, truthfully done that to a certain extent with Dystopia. However, Poisonous Shadows just feels compositionally like it's one of its kind on this disc. It has a strange texture to it, and it's one where, as I like to always say, the narrative and the overall composition has the opportunity to open itself up and give a lot more back to the listeners, and this song is able to execute this. And really, by some of the lyrical concepts and the end point of this track, it's weird to me. I almost feel like it has something to do with maybe Dave's it was his mother-in-law, I believe, that went missing and unfortunately passed. Either that, or it is about someone else that was very, very important to Dave, because of just the way this track ends. And then we get into something that's even cooler. I like the fact that this happened a lot. Poisonous Shadows goes into Conquer or Die, which sounds like it should be a pro-American, just boast fest. Either that or something where Dave Mustaine comes and and kicks the ass of all of our enemies, and essentially is the politician in music that we never thought we would have. But instead, we get 3 minutes and 33 seconds of an instrumental that has raw power behind it, that actually delivers the message without a single word being said. And I have to say, coming off of a track such as Poisonous Shadows, which really shines and shimmers as a highlight of this disc, to have that sort of follow-up is a strong decision, it's a good decision, and man, does it create a certain element of true raw power. Now, Lying in State and the Emperor as finale of this disc reminds me a little bit of Cryptic Writings in a weird way, and it does so just in the way that the latter portion of Dystopia seems to really invoke that quicker, more aggressive stance. And the Emperor actually has some strange lyricism where it almost seems like they're having a little bit more fun. They're gearing a little bit away from that in-your-face raw thrash power and a little bit more migratory toward I guess you could say, the pop thrash department. I don't like that word at all. I don't like the way that came out, but I don't know. It's really a hard thing to describe. I really like The Emperor, though. I think it's a solid track. It has some colorful imagery, and I think that it's not exactly the fitting finale where they're trying something bold and different, unique, and just trying to really end with their head held high. It's instead just a really, solid, above average track. Foreign Policy is truthfully the finale of most editions of this disc. It's a Fear cover from 1977. I think it's well handled here by the group. Fear was a punk band, and they were pretty cool. They were very, very good. Those of you who are Kurt Cobain, masturbators, will know and recognize this name, considering he had listed Fear as an influential band. I think that Dystopia has some rough patches in the middle. Tracks such as Bullet to the Brain and Post-American World just don't seem to have the same element of punch that's present within the remainder of this disc. I feel that that's a weakness. I also think that the youthful ambition, and I say youthful with air quotes, considering both Chris and Kiko have been in the music business for quite some time. It's not as though they are fresh meat. However, I think it did bring an element of nice freshness to this disc. I think it certainly translated into a lot more power. It didn't feel like this band was growing ancient, and instead, with Dystopia, it felt like, for at least 3/4 of the band, that the band was aging in reverse and just performing at a top-notch level. Dave Mustaine, on a lyrical level, does sound like he's tiring out just a little bit, but the snarl is back on this album, and that is certainly appreciative. It's something that does give it that extra little oomph that certainly enhances it back to the point where we can kind of put Super Collider out of our minds. Really, just listening to the riffs and the overall construction of about 2 tracks off of this album really just showcases its own magnificence over Super Collider. Just not a very good disc, not a very good effort last time. Good that they waited 3 years for the follow-up, nearly. Overall, this is a disc I'd give an 82 out of 100 to. It's not a flawless disc. It's not one that is absolutely perfect, but it is above average, it is competent, and it has a lot going for it where, moving forward, if this lineup has the opportunity and the ability to continue to perform together, they're only going to find new tricks of the trade to hopefully enhance Megadeth's music and keep their legend going for years to come. But I want to know what you guys think about Dystopia by Megadeth, probably one of the biggest releases of this early season thus far. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I will talk to you guys next time. We have a lot to talk about this week. We've already talked about a few of the new albums that have dropped, but there are more to come, so stay tuned.